Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Nursing Uncharted. It's your host, Anne. Today, I kind of wanted to switch things up a little bit. I've talked about my personal travel experiences. We've talked to other people that have been travel nurses, nurses in general, but this new contract that I'm on has really opened my eyes to a couple of things that I thought would be nice to highlight. I know that recently, even I've seen on social media people asking, "Hey, do you have a good recommendation for a travel nurse company or a recruiter?" And I'm seeing it more and more, and it made me think a little bit. And then my current experience has definitely shown me why people may be asking that question. So today is going to be a little bit of a highlight of the perks of the agency that I've exclusively traveled with for almost 5 years. And that company is AMN. Now I have a different perspective because this travel assignment that I'm on currently, unfortunately, was not handled by AMN. So I was wanting this contract. I really wanted to work for this hospital system and be in the location. And it forced me to have to go to another agency. So now I have a different perspective. Some may say, oh, I've been jaded because I've only been with AMN, but I've been with them because of my experience with them. And now being with a different, very successful healthcare recruiting agency, I have the ability to compare the two. And I just want to highlight what I feel is important to me and, why I really hope that I can switch back to AMN on my future assignments. So just a little backstory on how I got this assignment. So this is a hospital, like I talked about my last episode, that I've worked for before. And initially the contract was handled through AMN and things change. Different contracts get handed over and there's exclusivity amongst different travel agencies. So this time it was not handled by AMN, but I actually reached out to the manager directly at the beginning of this year because I have some friends that work at the hospital that I'm at, and I got the manager's contact information. And with how competitive the travel market is, especially for NICU, it's a very small market. It's highly competitive. There's a lot of people trying to get to work at specific hospitals and locations, and San Diego is a huge competitive market. So I did my own networking as much as I could to, get my name out there and, try to get into this hospital. So I was in contact with the manager of this hospital back at the beginning of the year, and we discussed, travel opportunities. And then she actually presented possibly like a permanent per diem staff position. And so I initially kind of went through that route, but it just didn't work out because of the shifts. And just because I was an outside employee, they have to, offer that to internal employees first. And it just didn't work out. But we've kept in contact over the last few months, me reaching out saying, "Hey, do you have anything yet?" And, through my consistency and, reaching out to her and my own networking, she contacted me and said, "Yes, in fact, we do need, a travel nurse." So she asked me for my resume, and then she was going to submit it over to the agency that was covering this hospital's contracts. So I didn't have any communication with a recruiter. As a travel nurse, your name gets out there. You search for something and someone from the agency always reaches out. But I didn't have an established relationship with a recruiter to this point. And honestly, how I looked at it is I basically handed a recruiter a very easy assignment because there was no work on their end that had to be done other than the credentialing and the onboarding process. So I I went through that process. I met with the recruiter. The initial conversations were great, but I also can now look back and reflect on how those initial conversations happened with my previous AMN recruiters. And I've had 3 recruiters. So this isn't me with the same one for 5 years that we've established now a relationship and there's, that consistency. I've had 3 different recruiters and I have been treated the same by all 3 recruiters. So that to me shows that there is a push for people to be the best. And total squirrel, but I feel that in the world that we live in a lot of aspects, especially healthcare, there's not that big push to be the best. So knowing that there is a company out there that really puts the pressure on their employees to be the best and to, just create those genuine relationships and connections with their nurses as recruiters, I now see that and I now appreciate that more than I have before. So my my communication with this current agency compared to my communication with AMN is nowhere near to what I have had in the past, and that to me is a problem. I actually had a slight issue with just something very simple, and my recruiter was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna take care of this for you." It has now been 3, almost 4 weeks, and I have yet to hear back from her. So that is a huge red flag to me, and I'm not here to, bash this other company, but I'm here to highlight why I have been exclusive with AMN and why I chose to take contracts with AMN when I've had other options, and it's because of these things that are now highlighted for me, and the number one is communication. The fact that I have actually heard from my AMN recruiter, even though I'm not on assignment with AMN right now, more than I have heard from my current recruiter with the contract that I'm working. Checking in, trying to set me up for when I'm done with this contract to see if they can, get me on an assignment or just checking in to be like, "Hey, how's it going? How are you?" We know things were difficult for a little bit, just checking in as almost like a friend. And that's what I've felt from the recruiters that I have had through AMN is that they became a friend, a working friend. I didn't go out on the personal side and meet up and, have that friendship. But I felt that I had a friend at work. And we all look for that, especially as nurses. We have like our work friends and, who we feel comfortable with. And this is the same thing. And I don't feel that I have that right now. And that's something that I now know is important to me. And again, this is carried across all three of the recruiters that I had. Another thing that has come up is there's a bunch of travelers where I am, and we talk about our contracts. We all talk about our contracts with one another. And I asked, how do I find it? Because there is an app with this that that from this travel agency, and I click on the contract and it won't pull up. And I just don't understand how I can find my contract to refer back to, because we have to do that. If there's something in our contract that the hospital doesn't honor, we have to be able to say, "No, here, this is in my contract. These are the days I want it off." Or actually, I'm supposed to work every other weekend. You've put me on every weekend. Or, I'm a rotating shift and you're just making me work straight days or straight nights. There's a lot of things that we need to refer back to the contract for. And the fact that I can't easily do that right now is a problem. So it was me having to look back through initial emails before I even got the job of my offer. And that's how I found my contract. And I think that that's not necessarily good. So that made me think about the AMN passport. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of walk through why having a successful app is really helpful as a travel nurse on assignment. So the app with AMN, if I needed to look at my contract, the first thing you look at when you open the app is it shows your current assignment. You click on it. One of the options right there is to look at your current contract. Easily accessible. It's there. It doesn't have to be loaded. You don't have to look through emails. It's all right there for you. Even if you're not on contract or you're looking for another job, there's a way to set preferences through the AMN passport to actually have the jobs that meet your preferences be your number ones. And you can auto submit, you can submit right from the app. There's just a lot of perks to the AMN Passport app. One of the other things that I think is really helpful, and I actually had to use the AMN Passport for my current job with my other agency because they needed all of my past travel work experience. So what I had to do, and I think this is cool, I actually just figured this out when I was looking for this information, is I can go through and look at all of my previous contracts and look at the end dates and how long they last. But you can actually submit and generate a resume right on the passport. and it will show you on a document that you can actually email to yourself that like what days you were on the contract. So that was super easy for me to just take that and then submit that to my new agency. And it's kinda sad because I really wanted to stay with AMM just because of, what I've talked about thus far, but, you know, having them even help me on other assignments is really, really cool. Just I think the transparency of the tran just the honesty of AMN, I guess this goes back to the communication. I have had difficult conversations with my recruiters regarding everyone's biggest, you know, stressor about pay packages or, why is someone getting paid? It happens. No one wants to talk about it. No one wants to have that conversation. But I have personally had that happen. And I've also had, unfortunately, hospitals lie about overtime opportunities for me. And looking back, I can I can take a lot of that blame because I trusted the hospital that I was working for at the time that they were gonna honor what they told me. I had it in a text message. I think I even had it in an email, but the hospital refused to pay me what they had offered for me picking up a bunch of shifts. And it was a significant amount of money. And I should have known that, travelers aren't entitled to, incentives or bonuses or whatever, but they did promise me that. So I took it for what it was. I was naive in that aspect, but I didn't even bring this up to my recruiter. This just kind of happened in a casual conversation because I thought, lesson learned. I'll never do that again. This is I worked the hours, I got paid for the hours, but I didn't get the incentive that was promised to me. But it came up in a conversation with my recruiter, and before me even having to ask or say, is there anything you can do? She was on it. She was emailing who she could to figure out who I could get in contact to see if there was anything that AMN could do for me. And they went to bat for me. They actually emailed the, director at or not emailed, I'm not sure how they communicated. They communicated with the director at the hospital and, fought for what was right. And I was surprised because I didn't expect that. I didn't expect someone, especially a big company like AMN Healthcare, to listen to me, just one of their many, many nurses on assignment, and say, you know what you did as a hospital is not right or fair. And we need to make this right. And I just like that is what makes my decisions when I'm looking for a job and when I'm comparing pay or contracts or what this agency can do compared to this agency. That is something that I will always hold as a plus. And I don't know if anyone will ever be able to top that. I mean, the fact that they literally had my back and the hospital didn't wanna pay me. So, we made it as right as we could, and I was happy at the end of it, the hospital was happy at the end of it, and, I didn't really have to do that on my own, like, someone handled that for me on the back end, and I think that that's very special, and I don't feel that many companies would do that. So, I know this kind of sounds biased in a way, but now that I have the opportunity to have an opinion about another company, I'm able to compare apples to apples and say that what I've experienced with AMN has been beyond what I ever expected from an employer because that's what they are. We work for the hospitals, but ultimately I am working for AMN and they had my back in a lot of situations. There's a lot of other things. They're a little personal. We don't have to go there, but I've always, always, always felt backed and supported. So, the biggest takeaways that I can tell you guys is that AMN has been fair, they have been honest, and I have been able to trust them when I didn't even know I needed to. And I'm sure there are, other recruiters out there working for other companies that will fight for you and do the same thing. But as a whole, to have a company really push to make things the best they can be is what I, as a nurse, want to do. And working for a company that also has that same foundation and those same beliefs is really special to me. So, AMN has opened a lot of other doors. I'm doing this podcast. I'm doing a lot for them. But I think it's important to highlight why I feel the way I do and to point out what you should expect on assignments. Your recruiter is there to help you. Just the other day, I was talking to one of the travel nurses at the job that I was at, and they were frustrated with their schedule because they were hired as a variable, so day-night rotation. But the hospital decided to just put them on nights. And I said to the girl, she was a newer traveler, I'm like, you have the right to question that because it's in your contract. Like, you should be having these conversations with your recruiters. Your recruiter should be checking in with you. And if your recruiter is not checking in with you, you have the opportunity to stand up, raise your hand, and say, hey, I need a little bit more support here. I need you to check in with me. I need you to follow up with me. Just because you got me the job and everyone's happy for completing their task doesn't mean that it ends there. This relationship lasts throughout the contract. And even beyond that, if you continue to work for them and take subsequent contracts from that same company, that relationship and that checking in should last. And I think that regardless of what travel agency you work for, highlighting what should be expected and what can happen because it's happened for me, you should strive for that. So, that just means asking for a different recruiter or talking to, your fellow travel nurses on assignment to get advice. We all need to kind of come together as travel nurses and, not demand. I don't like that saying, but just, know what we need and what we are deserving of. And that's why, I've never had to question it with AMN, and I'm excited to go back with them. And, this could change and I could have, a more successful later on through this contract. But what I've seen thus far is no comparison to what I've had in the past. And now I know what I expect moving forward. So, I'm not on here telling you, oh, go join AMN. Yeah, I've had a phenomenal experience with AMN. And the more people that have worked for them that were maybe a little hesitant because, everyone talks about everyone, the agencies all have a reputation. But when I've been able to connect someone with my recruiter and them get on that first assignment and have success and see what a successful caring company can do, it has changed that for them too. So I guess the biggest takeaway of this episode is that, just know that you should be supported on every assignment that you go on. And if you have a problem and you need help, you ask for help and your recruiter should help you. And if they don't, then you just ask to speak to someone else until you feel that you are fully supported while you're working for that company. I hope some of this can, kind of give you some advice and push you to, stand up for yourself and know what is right and what is wrong. And every travel nurse out there on assignment should know that they're backed and you should feel like you're backed. And if you're not, that may be as simple as changing your recruiter, or that may mean you need to go out there and try a different travel company. Thank you for tuning in to Nursing Uncharted. You can learn more about this episode and our show on our website at amnhealthcare.com. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. You can also find show updates and nursing opportunities on our Instagram at AMN Nurse. Special thanks to AMN Healthcare for making this show possible.